Hi again. So this is a warm-up routine, and it's what I use on a daily basis, before I work out in the gym, or before I play tennis, or before I go climbing or cycling or swimming or whatever I'm doing, or even just going for a walk. It's this very, very simple, easy to do routine, and I do it 3 times, but I'm just going to do it once with you. And it's working through my lower body first, always working with my lower body, then working with my upper body, and then I feel energized and good afterwards. I always begin at the wall. So I begin with my legs, and I begin with leg swings. So I use my hand to the wall, so I'm not going to be worried about my balance. I'm not going to be worried, am I going to fall over on top of somebody or something, particularly if I'm in a space in the gym or something like that. So I just swing my leg, just swing it forward and back. And I do that for 20 on each side. But I count 1, 2, 3 on each side. So that's just swinging my hip, getting that moving. And even though I'm using my hand on the wall, I'm still strengthening through my standing leg. And then I move over to the other side. So I'm bracing, turning my back towards you. But I just swing my leg then. And you will notice, like for me, my left is a little bit tighter than my right. And I swing then for 20. That side. And then because we don't do enough lateral movement, I then put my both hands against the wall and I swing my leg because we'll knock it off the floor. I swing my leg forward and backwards. So I'm opening up my hips, energizing through that part of my body. And then I do it in the opposite direction. Whoops, I'm going to send everything flying. So that's a good example of what not to leave in your way when you're doing it. Send your weights flying. So when I've done that then, I'm still with my hand to the wall and I open up my hips. So I rotate my hip joints and I take my time with this one. So I'm trying to move that ball and socket joint. And then I take it back in the opposite direction. And then my favorite one of all, and I picked this up in adult ballet classes years ago. I stand on one leg and I just keep that leg straight, put your hand on your glute and just feel what you're energizing there through your glute muscles. And I just kick my leg back like that. So I'm waking up my glute muscles there. And then I go to the other leg and I rotate through my hip and just get that hip joint moving. And then I rotate it in the opposite direction. And then I just kick that leg back. So leg is straight, both legs are straight. And I'm keeping my pelvis forward. So pelvis is forward and you're just kicking that leg, that straight leg back. And you can feel that action. I really like this particular move. And then from there, I'm going to open up my hips. And again, I'm working on my glutes and I'm going to come in to a squat. And I'm going to lift up and down out of my squat. So I'm working on my knees. I have my feet at about a 45-degree angle. So that angle is going to be different for everybody. For me, because of the way my hips are set, that's a good angle for me. So when you're coming down, you're trying not to lean forward. You're trying to lean back. And then you're taking your bottom back as though you were going to sit on a chair. I usually put my hands to my heart. It's yoga training. But equally, hands on your hips to come down. I find with my hands at my heart, I'm probably doing it better. When I come down, I'm pushing my knees apart, taking my bottom back. As I come up, I'm pressing into my feet to lift myself up. So I'm working on my abductor muscles. I'm working on my hips. I'm working on my glutes. So when you come up, you're going to squeeze your glutes. So hands to your heart again, or hands on your hips, and then take your body down, and then press into your feet as you lift up. Take your body down, press into your feet as you lift up, take your body down, and press into your feet as you lift up. From here, I usually take my feet a little further apart, and then I'm just going to stretch my hamstrings by touching my left toes with my right hand, my right toes with my left. Then I'm swinging my arms as well. And I'm just opening up through my hamstrings. And then I'm going to come up. I'm going to take my feet a little wider than hip width apart and I'm going to roll my hips. Roll them backwards and roll them forwards. And you can hear me breathing a little heavier than usual. I've got a bit of a cold today. That's not an excuse. it's good that I'm, sort of getting aerobically moving as well when I'm doing these. And then I love to roll my hips. I think it's really, really important. And then that's most of my whole lower part of my body. Now thinking about the rest of my body, thinking about my arms. So usually I'm going to swing my arms. So I'm thinking of the ball and socket. So I might just swing one arm and then swing the other, or I might swing both together. And one thing that I did in a workshop years ago with Ido Portal, I don't know if any of you have come across him before, but he's a really interesting movement guy. But he got us to do things that really challenged our minds. So he would get us to take one arm forward and the other arm back, because if we go to move our arms, we usually move them like that, moving it like a windmill in sequence. But he tried to get us to take the right arm forward and the left arm back, and then get us to do, but we all ended up doing it the same way. So another day I might teach you that when I practice it a little bit more myself, because I've forgotten how to do it myself, but that I found it really challenging. So that's my little sequence. That's just a basic little warm-up sequence. And I would do that 3 times. Just concentrating, say for instance, when I was swinging my legs felt tight, my hips felt tight. I would probably do a little more with that. Then, particularly with the squat, you're probably going to find the squat the most challenging. And the most challenging thing about that is keeping your upper body upright, because there's no point in doing a squat like that, because you want to challenge your glutes and you want to make sure your core is switched on. So you're pushing your bottom back as though you're going to sit down, and then you're pushing into your feet as you lift up. So your quads are energized there, you're working through your feet and your ankles. Really, really good move. And then the hip rotations, I find those really useful as well. And then you can do loads more with the upper arms. I play a lot of tennis, so for me, I do a lot more work on my upper body before I would play anything. So a couple of other things you can do with your arms then to get your arms ready for movement. Just basic things like you can take your right arm back, palm facing your back, and then take the left arm up and just opening up the shoulders. Then you would do it in the opposite direction. Then you would take one arm across your body and just stretch it out. These are really basic moves. Then you would take the other arm across. So you would never lift on the elbow joint. You would either be below it or above it. And then we do a thing in yoga called eagle arms that I find really useful for tennis. So we bend both arms, you cross the right over the left, and you lift up. And that's so you're in that shape. And then you can take your arms a bit away from you and move like that. And then, of course, you always do the opposite one as well. We call this eagle arms. So you may only get to having your backs of your hands together. Ideally, the palms are together. And you lift the elbows up in line with your shoulders. And then you relax. And I'm really fussy about my shoulders, rotating my shoulders up, back and down, and then rotating them in the opposite direction. So that takes less than 5 minutes, and I would do that, always do it 3 times. I think once doing that is not enough. You'll find the first time you do it, you're just a bit creaky and a bit stiff, and things might, creak and a little bit. And then the more you do it, the better it feels. And it's amazing how different you feel when you do the next thing that you're going to do. So I do it some days when I'm not going off to play tennis or do something like that. I would just do it anyway if I was feeling a bit sluggish or something. But I will always do it before I play tennis, before I go for a swim, before I work out in the gym. I will always warm up. I don't necessarily stretch, I warm up. Because stretching before you're warmed up, I don't think is a good idea from my experience anyway. I think you should warm up, energize, get the blood flow into the muscles, and then you can stretch. Always I would reserve my stretching to the end. And another day I'll show you a stretching sequence. How do you stretch after you've performed whatever, whether you're playing soccer or football, or you're playing tennis, or you're playing golf, or whatever you're doing? How do you then cool down? How do you stretch out the muscles? And I do believe in stretching, absolutely, as a yoga teacher. Absolutely believe in stretching, but never before, always after that you've performed. So that's it. That's a little warm-up. Remember, that's only 1 round of the sequence. You would do 3 definitely 3, if not more. You can do a different count on those or just do the count that I use. And I find that invaluable. I'm rarely injured. And I do a lot of stuff, different stuff with my body. And I attribute it, that, reduction of the risk of injury to mobility routines and stretching at the end of whatever I've been doing. And I would never leave it out because I want my body to be able to go the next day and the next day and the next year or whatever there is down along the line. I want to be able to do everything I want to do without the risk of injury. So that's it. That's a warm-up routine. And our next routine will then be, how do you stretch? How do you stretch out after a tough session or maybe even an easy session? How do you stretch your body? And with that, I'll leave you with that. So remember, warm-up routines, vital at the beginning before you do anything, or just to do them on their own as a part of keeping your body mobile. Until the next time then, be well and be good, and I'll see you on the mat.